battle reaching a new, fierce climax. Kang didn't halt his actions there. He carefully withdrew his axe and forcefully reinserted it. A disconcerting sensation traveled up the handle, sending shivers down Kang's spine. A troubling thought flickered through his mind: what am I actually doing with my life? Engaging yet again in such grotesque acts? Clutching his axe firmly, Kang twisted it with all his strength and thrust it upward, in a decisive motion. The grotesque figure with the axe embedded in its rear was now suspended in the air. Yet, Kang's fury did not subside. With ferocious energy, he pulled down the Red Goblin forcefully. At that moment, the Red Goblin's eyes blazed with fury, fixing Kang with a deathly glare. Undeterred, Kang removed his axe and plunged it in once more. This action was sufficient to consign the Red Goblin to oblivion. Overwhelmed by the intensity, the Goblin was paralyzed. Seizing the moment, Kang charged at him. He leaped forward. A triumphant grin etched across his face, determined to end the Red Goblin's misery by driving his weapon directly into its mouth. The battered creature lay there, incapacitated, its mouth agape, utterly unable to react. With one swift move, Kang drove the axe deep into the Goblin's mouth, continuing until the creature expired, blood scattering in all directions. Onlookers, including a particularly fast individual, could only ponder in bewilderment, who is this formidable awakener? How had he remained unnoticed all this while? Unbeknownst to others, Kang had not yet unleashed his full abilities. After relentlessly driving his weapon into the Red Goblin's face, a system notification confirmed the creature's demise. Since the Red Goblin was a boss monster, a reward was forthcoming, but Kang, still engaged in the tutorial, couldn't inspect the item immediately. He quickly stashed it in his inventory. At that moment, the fast guy called out to him from behind, causing Kang a moment of panic. He reasoned that typically loot was to be shared, yet he had single-handedly defeated the Red Goblin. The fast guy had arrived too late to contribute. Unwilling to share the spoils, Kang made a swift exit, claiming urgent business elsewhere. With a disarming smile, he tossed the formidable axe behind him, advising, "Feel free to use it after a good wash, of course." By the time the fast guy reacted, Kang had vanished. Removing his mask, the fast guy revealed strikingly handsome features and mopped the sweat from his brow, his mind set on one thing: he wanted a rematch. Hours later, as dusk fell, Kang escorted Juhi back to their home. They settled in for the night, changing into comfortable clothes and enjoying a quiet dinner. Juhi had prepared a sumptuous meal of ramen and tofu, but was taken aback by Kang's voracious appetite. Amidst her astonishment, she showed him her phone. Kang's eyes widened in shock upon seeing a video of his earlier battle, now circulating widely on YouTube and garnering a massive viewership. Jumping up from his seat, he exclaimed incredulously, "Is that really me? Did my video really get this many views?" Juhi surmised that one of her friends, who had been nagging her for an introduction to Kang, must have filmed the video. Shocked by this revelation, Kang was reading the online comments when he came across overwhelming praise. His response was a sly, unsettling grin, his cheeks flushing as he let out an eerie laugh. Juhi, visibly uncomfortable, remained silent for a moment. As Kang's laughter continued, Juhi couldn't hold back any longer. "You're making quite the unique impression." She was gearing up to tease him further about his expression, but Kang, absorbed once more by the comments, paid her no heed. The comments had a darker tone as well. Some compared his grimace to that of a fugitive, while others joked it was the look of someone who had conquered legions. One commenter humorously admitted she'd be terrified to encounter such a face in the dark. As night deepened, Kang retired to his room, only for Juhi to follow with a playful warning: "If your screams wake me at dawn again, it won't be pleasant." Despite her lighthearted tone, she was tired of being startled awake at 4 a.m. by his nocturnal outbursts. Kang, still buoyant, reassured her with a thumbs up. "Don't worry, I'm actually enjoying this stage. Tomorrow I'll wake up so cheerful, I might even suggest we go out for bear for breakfast," though not entirely convinced. Juhi left the room, a smile flickering on her lips. Alone with his thoughts, Kang grew solemn. The replay of his battle with the formidable goblin lingered in his mind. Recognizing the creature's strength even as a low-tier dungeon boss, he acknowledged the urgent need to complete his training and regain his full powers. A firm resolve to protect his family from any future threats solidified as he drifted off to sleep. Images of formidable adversaries weaving through his dreams. She might have been a threat to his life while he slept, yet Kang couldn't deny her allure. He found himself oddly eager to see her again. As sleep took him and he entered the tutorial stage, his eyes shut tightly, unable to dispel the timid excitement. He imagined waking to find the enchanting figure from his dreams before him. With a hopeful smile and a romantic air, Kang slowly opened his eyes only to be met by the grotesque visage of that pale, unsettling goblin. His reaction was instant surprise and irritation mingled as he involuntarily threw a punch that sent the goblin hurtling through the air, exclaiming, "Holy shit, you scared the life out of me." The creature lay defeated across the room while Kang stood baffled, scanning the area for the lovely visions he had anticipated. As he pondered the absurdity of the goblin's appearance, the system issued a new directive: "Kang, was to dodge a horde of cave goblins and escape the dungeon to reach a nearby town. The catch was that these goblins, though nearly blind, possessed exceptional hearing and usually moved in swarms ranging from 5 to 10,000. Any slight noise and Kang would find himself in peril. However, it was already too late. Kang's outburst had drawn the attention of over 100 goblins now encircling him. As the reality set in, his face paled, and he adopted a grave expression. Despite the impending threat of thousands of goblins poised to devour him, Kang remained surprisingly composed, undaunted by the danger looming before him. Grinding his teeth, Kang yelled furiously, "Why has the tutorial changed? Where are the characters I was promised?" As the goblins swarmed closer, his cries continued, relentless and echoing, until they overwhelmed and devoured him. Kang awoke with a start, his scream piercing the early 4 a.m. silence and jolting Juhai awake. Meanwhile, the scene shifted. A man clad in a black coat and pants was mercilessly beating two thugs. One lay bleeding on the ground when he attempted to speak. The man brutally silenced him with a crushing blow, expressing boredom. "I'm so tired of these weaklings. I need a real challenge then." Displaying a perverse delight, he licked the blood off his face. His thoughts returned to the video of Kang he had seen on YouTube. With a sinister grin, he muttered, "I have to meet and fight that guy." Nearly 2 months had passed, and Kang was frustratingly stuck in the 5th stage of the tutorial. One evening, as Juhi returned home exhausted from work, she was greeted by an absurd sight. Kang in round glasses, suit boots, with gel slicked back hair, a black coat draped over his shoulders, clutching a holy book and muttering to himself. Disgust washed over her. "What new madness is this I come home to?" she muttered, attempting a majestic demeanor. Explained, "My mind's been a mess, dying over and over. I'm seeking peace, like a monk might with theatrical gusto." He opened the holy book and began recounting his surreal experiences. "It's been 53 days, holy 53 days. Who keeps changing my reality every time I blink? Sometimes I wake up in the lap of a massive goblin. Other times I'm nearly cooked in their stew, or worse, butchered for their meal. Why is it always goblins?" Juhi, overwhelmed and sitting with her head in her hands, thought despairingly, "He's losing his mind day by day. I might need to consider a mental institution." After enduring half an hour of Kang's ramblings, she reached her limit. Standing abruptly, she shouted, "Enough of your nonsense. If you can afford suits, boots, and holy books, why not invest in soundproofing your room so I don't have to wake up to your insanity every morning?" Night had fallen once again, and Kang found himself back at stage 5, his expression tinged with melancholy. However, this time he was in for a surprise. No goblins were in sight. Instead, he stood at the entrance of a dungeon, his mood lifting as the system alerted him that his task was to conquer this new challenge. With a mischievous smirk, Kang strode confidently towards the dungeon boss. He was met by a colossal tarantula. "Personally, I'm terrified of spiders. Just seeing one in my home sends me running. Are any of you afraid of spiders? Or is there something else that freaks you out? Let me know in the comments." But back to Kang. This tarantula wasn't just menacing, it attacked him with a venomous secretion. Yet Kang didn't flinch. Consumed by the thought of attacking the tarantula directly, he ignored the poisonous juice splattering him, which began to decay his flesh. Despite this, Kang's resolve did not waver. In a desperate act to halt the spread of the poison, he gruesomely severed his own hand. The tarantula, momentarily stunned by his audacity, paused. Seizing the moment, Kang darted beneath the creature, a grin spreading across his face. "This might sting a bit," he whispered cheekily before cleaving the tarantula in two with a swift, decisive strike. Standing triumphantly between the severed halves of his foe, drenched in tarantula blood, Kang received the system's notification of victory. He had completed stage 5. His reward was the acquisition of a giant's power, classified as a B rank ability. Yet, Kang was far from content. His thoughts wandered as he held his blood-stained sword aloft, breaking into the maniacal laughter of a deranged killer. By now he had ascended to level 25, with impressive stats: strength at 20, agility and stamina both at 19, and his magical prowess equal. The giant's power he had acquired allowed him to double his muscle strength, adding a formidable 12 points to his strength for 10 minutes. As dawn broke, anxiety gripped students nearing their 18th birthday, dreading their initiation into the tutorial. Desperate for shortcuts, they scoured the internet for any advice on breezing through stages 1 to 8. However, those who had conquered these stages hoarded their strategies, while influential organizations preferred to keep such empowering knowledge secretive. During their search, one student stumbled upon a provocative post titled, "The Secret to Clearing Stage 1 to 8. Their curiosity piqued. They delved into the content, only to find themselves bewildered and skeptical. The post asserted that sheer muscle power was the key to overcoming the initial stages, proclaiming that any problem could be resolved with sufficient strength, and if not, it merely indicated inadequate power. Dismissing the advice as nonsense, the students mocked the post in the comments, questioning the sanity of its author. Meanwhile, Kang stumbled upon the disparaging remarks under his post and erupted in fury. "I've shared invaluable tips, and these ingrates scoff at them," he roared. Shu He, witnessing his outrage, tried to reason with him, suggesting that his unique approach might not suit everyone. Unperturbed, Kang responded with an optimistic thumbs up. Just wait and see. Before he could elaborate further, Shu-hee interjected with laughter, jesting. At this rate you'll complete all the stages in a decade. Their typical sibling banter ensued, but Kang remained undeterred. Using his enhanced strength, he swiftly conquered stages 6 and 7. The reward for stage 6 was a grade B longsword forged from black steel, boasting a durability of 500. This sinister weapon, once belonging to a psychopathic murderer, had absorbed the lifeblood of countless victims, turning its blade an ominous black, and was said to be suited only for those with a malevolent spirit. The reward for clearing stage 7? Ronald armor, also graded B. This armor, once donned by a psychopathic warrior from ancient times, struck Kang as oddly fitting given the nature of his other rewards. Despite this, Kang's thoughts were preoccupied with a different goal. He aimed to complete stage 8 and astonish Shu-hee, which would allow him to utilize these items in the real world. Kang opened his eyes to find himself back in the familiar, stark white room. A welcoming message from the system greeted him. Welcome to stage 8, followed by a question posed in a sultry, alluring voice. What do you believe? Confused by the question and before he could ponder its meaning, the serene white space began to fracture dramatically. The sky shattered like glass above him, and the ground crumbled under his feet. Kang plummeted, screaming, into the abyss, his fall seeming to stretch endlessly. When he finally regained his senses, he found himself in the midst of a bustling city, encircled by onlookers. Is this my city? Kang questioned, his mind racing with confusion. His query deepened when a woman passed through him, as if he were a mere hologram. As he turned to follow her with his eyes, Kang noticed something unsettling about the crowd. While their bodies resembled those of humans, their faces were distinctly non-human. Some bore lizard-like features, others canine, yet they moved through a civilization starkly similar to Earth's. Just then, Kang's attention was drawn to what he first thought was a monster staring intently at him. Is this creature observing me? Is my task to lay waste to this world? He wondered. But soon he realized the creature's gaze was fixed not on him, but on something or someone directly behind him. Suddenly, a colossal portal erupted behind Kang, unleashing a horde of golems, gigantic tarantulas, eerie insects, dragons name any monstrosity, and it surged forth. They descended upon the city, wreaking havoc and slaughtering its denizens under Kang's horrified gaze. The system alerted Kang the Heikin dimension has been breached. It became clear to him. This was the cataclysm the system had forewarned. In 5 years, such a flood of monsters would besiege Earth, threatening to obliterate humanity. Amidst the chaos, Kang spotted an immense shadow overhead. As he gazed upwards, a wave of dread washed over him. What in the world, he wondered, as a godlike entity annihilated the planet in mere moments. Kang found himself once again in the stark, white expanse, utterly bewildered by the vision he'd just witnessed. The alluring voice that had first greeted him spoke again, asking, "How do you feel?" Surprised. Ahead of him materialized a hologram of a celestial being, radiant and ethereal. "Are you a god?" Kang inquired. The figure laughed softly, replying, "No, I'm not a god. Think of me as a dimensional administrator. Those who reach stage 8 have the opportunity to meet me and pose any question." Now, with a grave demeanor, Kang asked about the catastrophic scenes he had witnessed. Will Earth face this fate in 5 years? The celestial responded, "It depends on human actions. I have done all within my power to shield Earth from such a destiny. I am the creator of the tutorial, and the grantor of power," she continued. Puzzled, Kang questioned, "If you possess such power, why not prevent these disasters yourself?" With a chuckle and a hint of seduction in her voice, she explained, "I hail from another dimension. I cannot simply alter laws and rescue everyone. My role was to provide humanity a fighting chance." She then added, "Among all the players, Kang, you were the least skilled yet the most amusing. Your antics brought me great amusement." Kang, refocusing on the matter at hand, was about to inquire if she was responsible for the constant changes he endured. In the midst of discussing the theme of stage 5, the angel interrupted with a chuckle, congratulating Kang on clearing stage 8, and cryptically remarking that the tutorial was merely the beginning. Suddenly, Kang found himself levitating. He realized she had been toying with him, but before he could articulate his thoughts, the ground beneath him disappeared, and he plummeted downward. Enraged, Kang raised his fist, shouting curses at the angel, "You son of a..." But before he could finish, he vanished. The angel's voice, laced with seduction, whispered, "I will be waiting for you." Kang awoke with fury, attempting to scream and hurl more curses at the angel, but his voice was stifled. His face flushed a deep red as he realized something was lodged in his mouth. Pulling it out, he was revolted to find Juhi's socks. Disgusted, he spat and gagged. Juhi sat nearby, unperturbed and smirking as if she owned the place. She teased him, "I knew you'd wake up screaming again, so I came prepared. What nightmarish dish did the goblins serve up today?" Kang, still tasting the remnants of the sock, flung it back at her without a word. Instead, he opened his status window, his face breaking into a triumphant grin. "See that? The power of your amazing brother," he boasted. Juhi merely rolled her eyes and stood up, unimpressed. Now that you've completed the tutorial, she said, it's time to get out of the house, find a job, and start contributing financially. I'll make you a special breakfast just for today. Stung by her lack of enthusiasm, Kang protested. You could at least congratulate me. You're so heartless, no wonder you don't have a boyfriend. That remark struck a chord. Without missing a beat, Juhi hurled a cooking spoon at Kang's face. Later, Kang lounged on the sofa, perusing his status window, now at level 28 with strength at 21, agility at 19, stamina at 20, magic at 20, and a variety of skills, while Juhi headed off to work. Finally, Kang retrieves the item he had acquired from the disheveled goblin. Upon opening the box, he discovers a grimy, tattered book. He picks it up, invoking its powers reveal your true nature, my boy. The system responds, informing him that it is a magic explosion skill book. This skill, once learned, would allow him to launch an orb of explosive magical energy. Kang gazes at the book with a solemn intensity before his expression shifts. Suddenly he bursts into maniacal laughter, lifting the book triumphantly into the air, a clear sign of his fraying sanity. The system prompts him, asking if he wishes to acquire the skill. Without hesitation, Kang agrees. The book dissolves, its knowledge merging with his essence. Feeling empowered, Kang clenches his fist, a genuine smile spreading across his face for the first time in a while. Now he declares, it's time to join the Awakener Association and take down some goblins. The scene then transitions to a contrasting setting. Ma Young, a newly appointed public servant and naive dreamer, walks with a Starbucks cup in hand. She envisions meeting charming rookie awakeners through her job processing forms for those over 18, but reality proves far harsher. Seated at her desk, Ma Young is visibly shaken, tears streaming down her face. The cause of her distress is none other than Kang, who stands before her looking like a character from a thriller, his gaze piercing as if wielding multiple knives. Overwhelmed, Ma Young whispers a request for his ID, her voice barely audible. What Kang queries, his tone unintentionally harsh, prompting Ma Young to break down completely. Murmurs ripple through the line of other awakeners, speculating about Kang's ominous presence, perhaps mistaking him for a fugitive. As bystanders begin recording the unsettling scene, Kang attempts to soothe her, which only escalates her distress. Amidst the chaos, a calm voice intervenes. Is there a problem here? Kang whirls around to find a composed man with glasses approaching a familiar face from his past encounters. Their eyes lock, a mutual recognition flashing between them. This man, Kim, is an instructor at the association. He gently takes the form from Ma Young and leads Kang aside for a private conversation, pointing out the discrepancy between Kang's current appearance and his photo on the application form. Kang, puzzled himself, suggests, maybe the tutorial altered my looks. His answer does little to clarify the situation, adding to the air of mystery surrounding him. Kang, willing to verify his identity, offers his fingerprint and DNA, but Kim is taken aback to learn that Kang has progressed to stage 5 and reached level 12. Kang, underestimating his own achievements, thought these were modest accomplishments. In reality, most individuals barely surpass stage 3, with the majority only clearing stages 1 or 2. Caught in a dilemma, Kang fabricates a story, claiming he had embarked on several raids before the government mandated awakened IDs for dungeon raids. Kim senses Kang is concealing something but opts not to press further. Instead, he inquires about the Men-Force strength skill Kang possesses, which Kang explains boosts his muscle power by 2 for 10 minutes, allowing him to move exceptionally fast. Kim then requests evidence of the rewards from stages 2 through 5 to verify Kang's claims. Feeling cornered by the persistent questioning, Kang has no choice but to comply. In a shocking display, he bites into his own skin, tearing off a chunk of his hand as blood drips profusely. The gruesome scene sends shivers down Kim's spine. Miraculously, the wound heals instantly, revealing Kang's self-healing ability. Reminiscent of the fictional character Deadpool, Kang proceeds to demonstrate his ring, which protects against mental attacks, and seeks permission to use his stage 5 skill, which instills fear in nearby adversaries. Kim, underestimating its power, consents. Meanwhile, a sinister figure in a black coat observes from across the room. Recognizing Kang, he recalls the notorious video on YouTube that had gone viral. Sensing impending chaos, he instinctively covers his ears. The others in the room, unaware of what's about to unfold, are caught off guard. Kang unleashes a mighty roar, overwhelming everyone in the vicinity. They collapse, drained of strength and barely able to move. When the commotion subsides, even Kim is visibly shaken, having underestimated the skill's potency. With a casual smile, Kang asks, "Was that enough to prove it?" As they continue their discussion, the mysterious man in the black coat watches on, his expression a mix of awe and disbelief, utterly captivated by Kang's display of power. After a while, Kang indulged in a fantasy where his newfound handsomeness was so striking that women would fall for him merely from glancing at his ID card. He even mused about being nearly denied entry because his appearance differed drastically from his photo. Meanwhile, the other candidates around Kang engaged in whispers and rumors, recounting tales of confrontations that left others nearly in tears from fright. While Kang snacked on his protein bar, Kim entered the classroom flanked by 2 instructors. Upon his arrival, he introduced himself to the group. "My name is Kim, and I'll be leading your training." Applause broke out as Kim launched into an overview of the training regimen, 10 days split between morning theoretical classes and afternoon practical sessions, with meals and accommodations provided. However, Kim soon delivered a sobering reality check. "Don't expect us to reveal any profound secrets or techniques. The harsh truth is that, much like refuse, hunters perish in dungeons daily." He cautioned the aspirants about the deadly risks of dungeon hunting, underscoring the volatility and unpredictability of their chosen path. Kang listened intently but couldn't help thinking. He dived straight into talking about death. Kim's focus was on imparting essential survival skills, not superfluous knowledge. After announcing a brief 10-minute break, Kim left the room. Kang, feeling somewhat overwhelmed, gazed up at the ceiling and muttered about his boredom. The prospect of enduring 10 days of such grim discussions seemed daunting. Just then, a man with a booming voice and a robust build approached him, introducing himself as Sohil with a warm smile and outstretched hand. Kang, though internally dismissive of Sohil's burly demeanor, knew it would be rude to refuse the handshake. Introducing himself as Kang, he extended his hand to Sohil. No sooner had their hands met than Sohil's smirk revealed his intentions. He tightened his grip, his muscles bulging as he said, "Please take care of me." With a sly grin, Sohil thought to himself that he needed to establish his dominance early, especially since Kang's loud outburst during the application process had nearly deafened him. However, to his astonishment, Kang remained unfazed by the forceful handshake, treating it as if he were clasping hands with a child. Kang quickly deduced Sohil's attempt to assert superiority. In the wild, there could be only one ruler, Kang mused, and he was not about to cede his position. Activating his latent giant's strength, he returned the pressure. Sohil, now gasping in agony, could scarcely believe he was being overpowered. Having invested all his attribute points into strength during the training, he had never encountered a rival of such formidable power in the newbie zone. The onlookers watched in stunned silence as Sohil's veins swelled alarmingly, and then, with a horrific pop, they burst. Blood sprayed wildly, turning the floor into a macabre pool. As Sohil's face blanched with shock, another trainee burst into maniacal laughter, his admiration for Kang morphing into outright fanaticism. He clapped enthusiastically, reveling in the spectacle as Sohil howled in pain. An ambulance arrived to take Sohil away while Kang, seething with frustration, insisted, "It was an accident. I didn't do anything. That guy came over and squeezed so hard that I had to use my strength defensively, or my own veins would have burst." Kang appealed to Kim, suggesting he review the classroom surveillance footage if he doubted his account. Kim, still reeling from the incident, inquired about Kang's special ability. Kang explained that it was the strength of the strong which amplifies his strength by 1.5 times. However, Kim looked puzzled. "Didn't you mention earlier that your ability, Strength of the Man Force, increases your strength twofold?" Kang, caught off guard, fumbled his response. "I'm not great with numbers. Might have mixed them up." Realizing Kang was concealing something, Kim sighed, recognizing that the altercation wasn't intentional. He decided to let it pass, advising Kang to return to class without further disruptions. Despite his anger, Kang resigned himself to his seat, thinking, "Why can't I just be left in peace?" Just then, the same blonde young man from before approached him. "Can I sit here?" he asked. An irritated Kang muttered, "Sit wherever you want," but internally he groaned, first a musclehead, now a thug. The blonde introduced himself as Yosong, eagerly asking to call Kang elder brother. "I admire you," Yosong confessed. Puzzled, Kang wondered why. Yosong explained that he had been a fan ever since watching Kang defeat an unsightly goblin on YouTube. "And when I saw you handle that guy today, I knew you were the real deal." Kang thought to himself, "This guy's not normal either." As he reiterated, "It was just an accident." The echoes of the day's chaos lingered. Back in class, Kim resumed the lecture, outlining the dire consequences of failing to clear a dungeon within 5 days, risking the release of monsters that could harm civilians. He detailed the distinctions between temporary and permanent cores within dungeons. Destroying the temporary core would close the dungeon in 5 days, while annihilating the permanent core would seal it instantly. Suddenly, from the back of the room, another brash individual whom Kim dubbed Musclehead Number 2 interrupted loudly. "I didn't come here for pointless lectures. I want combat training and my certificate now." The guard, visibly annoyed, was about to eject him, but Kim intervened. With a stern tone, Kim invited Musclehead Number 2 to the stage. Striding forward with a smirk, the man boasted, "I'm on the stage now, do what you will. Are all the characters in this tale so twisted?" Kim removed his coat, stepped off the stage, and set a 1-minute timer on his phone. "If you can touch me within this minute, you'll graduate on the spot," he declared. His gaze hardened as he added, "But fail, and you're expelled." Both Kim and Sohil observed with a mix of annoyance and amusement at Musclehead Number 2's arrogance. Yet, they both flashed unnervingly gleeful smiles and murmured, "But this will be entertaining, so it's all good." Fueled by Kim's challenge, Musclehead Number 2, a battle enthusiast, drew his sword with a confident grin. "You're going to regret this, man," he threatened. The assistant instructor, concerned, cautioned Kim, "Hey, that's a real sword. You could get hurt." Unfazed, Kim simply adjusted his glasses and replied coolly. Then, addressing Musclehead number 2 with a taunt, "Come at me," he beckoned. Enraged, Musclehead number 2 charged, veins bulging and sword swinging with full force. Kim, however, effortlessly dodged the attack, displaying his superior agility. Kim smirked and cautioned, "If you scream like a madman and attack a monster, it will go for your neck first." Enraged, Musclehead swung wildly, trying to cleave Kim in two, only to realize he had sliced through nothing but an afterimage. Kim materialized behind him like a specter, whispering, "You might be strong, but you're painfully slow, useless in a real fight." This taunt sent Musclehead into a frenzy. His eyes ablaze with fury, he turned and began a desperate onslaught, his sword slashing frantically in an attempt to land a single effective strike. Unflappable as ever, evaded each attack with ease, making Musclehead look utterly foolish. Overcome with rage, Musclehead's assaults grew more haphazard, his movements akin to a wild beast. But Kim had finished toying with him. With a swift kick, he sent Musclehead number 2's sword soaring into the ceiling. "And here's your final lesson," Kim said, smirking. "If you flail around wildly without conserving energy, you'll exhaust your stamina in no time." Checking his phone nonchalantly, Kim announced, 1 minute and 28 seconds, time's up. You're expelled." The room fell silent in shock. Even Kang was taken aback by Kim's agility and pondered, "Could I beat him in a one-on-one fight?" At that moment, both Kang and Yu-song, reveling in the chaos, burst into maniacal laughter, imagining a battle against Kim. Yu-song, barely containing his eagerness, looked almost drooling with anticipation. Kim, noticing Yu-song's raucous laughter, turned to see him with a flushed, saliva-dripping expression. Observing this, muttered under his breath, "Io, is this guy a psychopath? Maybe I shouldn't have let him sit next to me. Now everyone might think this good-looking guy hangs out with a psycho." Ignoring the sideshow, Kim announced that the day's training would focus on weapon mastery. He instructed everyone to select their preferred weapon and begin practice, promising that instructors would soon provide personalized guidance. Kang picked up a long sword and, while inspecting it, thought to himself, "This is so tedious." Just then, Yu-sung approached him, remarking on the dullness of solo practice and suggesting they spar together. Kang's face brightened with excitement at the idea, but his enthusiasm was quickly dashed as Kim announced from behind that personal sparring would be off limits until the 6th day, with violators facing expulsion. Disheartened, Kang's excitement fizzled into disappointment. As time wore on, everyone around him engaged vigorously in practice. From his vantage point, Kang sat slack-jawed, observing the others and internally scoffing, "What a bunch of weaklings." Their lackluster efforts were so soporific that Kang decided he might as well swing his sword a bit, if only to stave off the boredom and maybe build some muscle. Engaging half-heartedly, he began to swing his sword aimlessly, his movements erratic like a bumblebee zipping around. Kim's eyes lingered on him for quite some time before he approached with a stern, imposing tone. "Your sword skills are abysmal. Where did you pick up such dreadful techniques? If you enter a dungeon like that, you'd be the first casualty." Taken aback, Kang paused and met the instructor's critique with a steely gaze. As Kim pointed out his flaws, Kang's imagination ran wild. He envisioned seizing the instructor by the neck, his expression morphing into one of sinister menace as he challenged, "Let's duel one-on-one. Let's see if my skills really are as terrible as you say." In his mind's eye, the instructor would surely have been trembling with fear at the sight of Kang's menacing glare. Back in reality, Kang merely scratched his ear, deciding against instigating a fight his ear probably reeked as well. At that moment, Kim clapped his hands to capture everyone's attention and announced an upcoming sparring match between Kang and the instructor's junior. Both Kang and the instructor were taken aback by the announcement. Kim handed his sword to the junior, cautioning him to be careful while sparring with Kang. With a smirk, Kang sensed an easy victory ahead, while the junior appeared puzzled about why such caution was necessary against a newcomer. As Kim counted down, 3, 2, 1, the match commenced. The junior approached the duel with seriousness, but Kang was visibly thrilled. A wild grin spread across his face. At the signal, Kang charged forward, his eyes alight with anticipation. With a mere flick of his wrist, using just a fraction of his strength, Kang's strike caused the junior's sword to quiver. Raising his sword high, he delivered a decisive blow that sent the junior's sword flying through the air, landing just inches from the junior's head. Silence enveloped the area as everyone looked on in stunned silence. Seizing the teaching moment, Kim explained, "Regardless of how poor your technique may be, sheer power can still overcome an opponent." Kang, misinterpreting the comment as praise, laughed heartily, swelling with pride. However, he completely missed the point. Kim was actually critiquing his lack of skill. Kim helped his junior to his feet, offering an apology, then turned a grave face towards Kang and told the junior, "I just needed to confirm something, and now I have my answer." Meanwhile, Kang had taken to recording his experiences. His diary began day 1, A peculiar guy named Yu Song sat in front of me, clinging to me like a lost puppy. During training, an instructor challenged me, and I promptly put him in his place. Day 2 was entirely tedious. I spent the morning dozing off in the theory class, and by evening, after the incident with the instructor, no one dared to challenge me in the practical class. The instructors grew increasingly concerned about Yu Song as he began toying with his sword using his feet. On day 3, both Yu Song and I were disengaged during our classes, and since sparring was banned, we resorted to mock sparring, mimicking movements without actual sword clashes. By day 4, my boredom had peaked. I even sketched myself defeating a goblin in my diary. During the practical session, I whimsically picked up 2 swords and made them duel each other, leaving the instructor at a loss. Day 5 was the pinnacle of tedium. All I desired was to go home. That evening, during training, I lay sprawled out on the field, feigning meditation when questioned by the instructor. By day 6, my boredom felt lethal. I prodded Yu Song to stir up some excitement, half joking that they'd need to carry my body out if I spent another day in this mental asylum. However, Yu Song, with his eerie grin, hinted at a thrilling event for the evening since day 6 marked the start of one-on-one sparring sessions. Despite his enthusiasm, I dreaded what his idea of something special might be. As evening arrived and the one-on-one sparring commenced, I quickly overcame my opponent. After returning to my seat, Yu Song offered his congratulations. Yet, as I watched the ongoing matches, they seemed no more intense than children brawling in a playground, utterly unstimulating. Then, a match began that momentarily caught my interest. Candidate number 1, overcome with zeal, charged at candidate number 2 with a spear. The latter, seized by panic, stood frozen in fear as the spear neared. The fight concluded, and as I watched, a sense of urgency gripped me. I needed to face him. Soon, it was Yu Song's turn. He rose slowly, turned to me with that unnerving smirk and said, "I'm going out there." I could sense that something significant was about to unfold. As Yu Song made his way to the stage, I recalled his morning promise of showing me something interesting during sparring. Anxiety tightened its grip on me. Was Yu Song planning to stir up trouble? If so, it was up to Instructor Kim to intervene immediately. Meanwhile, Kim and a mage named Yuri faced off. Yuri, armed with her personal staff, prepared for the duel. Kim, addressing Yu Song's unconventional choice of a massive thorny mesh weapon over a traditional sword, questioned his strategy. Yu Song, ever nonchalant, simply responded, "There's no rule that limits me to one type of weapon, right?" Kim, perhaps underestimating the implication, initiated the match. 3, 2, 1 he counted down, and the battle began. Yuri wasted no time, conjuring a series of magic crystals and propelling them towards Yu Song. With a casual swing of his mesh, Yu Song obliterated the crystals, the shards peppering his face as he laughed with that disturbing grin. I watched, partly shocked but mostly fascinated by the display of magic. Having always admired mages since childhood, the spectacle was thrilling. Yet Yuri, a prodigious mage, was not entertained. It was unthinkable to her that a warrior could so effortlessly counter her magic. Gathering her might, she summoned a massive magic crystal overhead and hurled it at Yu Song, who, unfazed, seemed not to focus on the crystal but on something beyond it. He eyed her with a menacing glint in his left eye, lifted his mesh high, and took a step back. With the laughter of a battle-crazed maniac, Yu Song began to spin his weapon furiously. Kong quickly grasped what Yu Song intended to do. He struck the incoming magic crystal with such force that it spun around, and he deftly redirected it toward Kim. Kim evaded the projectile with a nimble sidestep. However, Yu Song's true target had never been Kim. Seizing the moment of distraction, Yu Song charged at Yuri. Kim, realizing the danger too late, could only watch as Yu Song delivered a brutal blow to Yuri's face with his mesh. Blood splattered in all directions as Yuri fell, her hand grotesquely twisted on the ground, fingers shattered, bleeding profusely. Motionless, she lay there while Yu Song, covered in her blood, wiped his face, and let out a chilling smile, murmuring, "That was damn satisfying." Panic ensued as the junior instructor frantically called for an ambulance, shouting about a critical open fracture, a shattered hand, and severe bleeding. The scene shifted to the junior instructor attending to the gravely injured Yuri, who trembled uncontrollably and was unable to speak. Meanwhile, Yu Song stood smirking nearby, with a grave expression and in a deep voice, drew his dagger and demanded, "What do you think you just did?" Yu Song, unfazed, raised his hand and replied nonchalantly, "No need to get heated. It was just an accident. Accidents happen, and since I didn't kill her, it's not a big deal, right?" Incensed, Kim yelled, "Do you really think I'm going to believe that nonsense?" Yu Song's mere blink in response only heightened Kim's disgust, prompting him to sigh in frustration and declare, "We're taking a 20-minute break." He then motioned for Yu Song to follow him to a corner. Amidst the turmoil, Kong's attention was drawn to Kim's dagger. He recognized it, the same type used by the stranger who had helped them defeat that repulsive goblin. Kang's suspicions were confirmed. Kim had indeed assisted during the goblin incident. As 2 more days rolled by, the monotony of the sparring sessions weighed heavily on him. Kang slumped in his seat, thoroughly disenchanted. while Yu Song, since the violent episode, had become a formidable presence in the ring, his opponents either collapsing from fear or yielding without a fight. By the 8th day, Kang's patience reached its breaking point. He burst into Kim's office, a gleam of anticipation in his eyes, and blurted out, "The training session ends in 2 days. Let's have a duel with real swords." Kim, already beleaguered by Yu Song's recent behavior, met Kang's enthusiasm with a weary gaze. He lowered his head and sighed. "Yu Song's antics have already turned my life upside down. Please, no more complications." Kang paused, then ventured, "I can tell you're tired of supervising these novices every day. Don't you crave a real challenge and a dramatic flair?" Kang materialized behind Kim and whispered, "We've met before, haven't we?" Soon after, they found themselves in the auditorium, swords in hand, prepared for a genuine duel. Kim expressed his gratitude to Kang. "If it weren't for you, many would have perished that day," Kang responded modestly. "I was merely fulfilling my duty." Though internally he wondered if Kim was aware of the artifact he had secured from their last encounter. Noticing Kang's long black sword, Kim remarked, "That's a remarkable sword you have there. As far as I recall, clearing stage 6 awards a unique sword. Right?" Kang, attempting to remain nonchalant, fibbed, "Yeah, I stumbled upon it on the road." Kim, skeptical, pulled out his dual daggers from his inventory and retorted with a wry smile, "These daggers? I found them on the road, too." With no further ado, he vanished in a blink, reappearing with incredible speed to launch a swift strike at Kang. Kang barely had time to turn around and block the attack. Kim chuckled and commented, "I thought you relied solely on strength, but your speed is quite impressive too." Kang grinned and replied, "I know you're not going all out. Since I have rapid recovery, feel free to come at me with everything you've got." Kim smirked and responded, "If that's the case, I won't hold back." He then vanished, moving so swiftly that Kang struggled to track him. Kim unleashed a flurry of strikes from every direction, his daggers nearly a blur. Meanwhile, Kang, with a disturbingly pleased smile and eyes glowing red, reveled in the challenge, exclaiming, "This is what I was missing." Despite Kim's relentless assault, Kang's wounds healed almost instantly, showcasing the formidable nature of his healing abilities. Realizing the extent of Kang's recovery power, Kim intensified his efforts. He aimed to place his dagger at Kang's neck, anticipating that Kang would dodge and expose his stomach for a follow-up attack. However, Kang surprised him by blocking the dagger with his hand, allowing it to lodge between his bones. Shocked, Kim attempted to retrieve his dagger, but it was firmly stuck. With a macabre smile, Kang taunted, "Got you now, baby." Before Kim could react, Kang yanked him forward and delivered a forceful headbutt. Kim spat blood and was briefly knocked unconscious, his glasses flying off as he collapsed. When he regained consciousness, he realized he had been bested. As time passed, Kang relaxed with a Coke and an ice pack on his head. Kim, still recovering, conceded, "I didn't realize you were this strong." Kang responded with a smile. "That sparring match was technically a draw, because of my passive regeneration skill." Kim teased, "Which means I won." Kang, slightly irked, insisted, "It was a draw. I didn't intentionally use my passive skill." They bickered playfully for a moment before Kim expressed his gratitude. "Thanks, Kang. I've been worn out from babysitting these kids for months. This was the most fun I've had in ages." He then advised Kang to rest up, reminding him that the next day was set for dungeon exploration. Meanwhile, outside the academy, a mysterious figure in a black hoodie lurked by the dungeon entrance, hinting at challenges yet to come. He glanced left and right, then slipped into the shadows as the door swung open. As it shut, it left behind nothing but the dark, foreboding entrance to the dungeon. Morning had broken, and everyone was assembled in front of a dungeon entrance. Kang stepped forward and briefed the group. "This site has been designated as an educational dungeon by the Awakener Ability Training School. Welcome to Ephraim Dungeon in Geeka's Forest." He continued, "The creatures here are known as Geekas, and they're tougher than the usual monsters found in E-frame dungeons. We chose this location for training for 2 reasons. First, it's a field-type dungeon, which means there are no traps or hidden dangers, just the monsters. Second, the Geekas are relatively easy to isolate and engage one at a time." Kim then approached, swung open the dungeon door, and announced, "I'll share more details once we're inside." Taking a deep breath, Kang crossed the threshold. It was his first time entering a dungeon, and he was a whirlwind of nerves and excitement. As he passed through the entrance, Kang experienced a strange sensation, as if he were floating momentarily. When he opened his eyes, he found himself in a lush green forest. It certainly was a dungeon, but it looked more like an idyllic picnic spot. As they ventured deeper, Kang, still absorbing his surroundings, queried Yusong, "So, if we exit through the dungeon gate, we return to Earth, right?" Yusong, visibly annoyed, responded, "Bro, they covered this in theory class. You should know that by now." Kang, slightly irritated, retorted, "Why are you even speaking to me? I don't want people thinking a good-looking guy like me is friends with a psycho." Yusong shot back without missing a beat, "You were the one who started talking to me first." Soon after, Kim regrouped everyone and sent one of his juniors to lure a Geeka. As they waited, Kim provided further details. Geekas are bird-like monsters, standing a little over 2 meters tall, resembling ostriches. They have quick legs and a beak strong enough to penetrate plated armor. A direct strike from that beak is something you'd want to avoid at all costs. So stay sharp, the usual tactic involved encircling the creature and securing its feet. However, before Kim could elaborate, everyone's attention was abruptly diverted by an alert. A message materialized before them, announcing that the dungeon's central core had been removed, an exit portal had opened, and the structure was on the brink of collapse. As the ground trembled and the sky began to fracture, panic surged through the group. The thought of being trapped indefinitely within the collapsing dungeon sent a wave of terror through the crowd. Yet, amidst the chaos, Kim maintained his composure and commanded, "Everyone, stay calm. The dungeon won't collapse immediately, we have at least an hour. Please exit in an orderly manner." His reassurance guided them, and they began to evacuate systematically. Despite the orderly retreat, the mystery of who had sabotaged the dungeon's core lingered, leaving Kim with an unsettling feeling. A sinister tension filled the air, and just as the last of the group was exiting, the dungeon shook with renewed ferocity. Sparks erupted from within, and the palpable fear escalated. Kim's complexion turned ashen, but he acted swiftly, barking orders, "Get moving. Notify headquarters for backup. We need to evacuate all trainees immediately." As he coordinated the evacuation, Kim pieced together the clues. The removal of the temporary core should have led to a gradual collapse over several days, suggesting that it had been tampered with days before. His thoughts raced to a grim conclusion: someone, likely masquerading as a student, had deliberately destroyed the permanent core, triggering the immediate and catastrophic breakdown of the dungeon. Confused, Kong came running up, his expression bewildered as he asked, "What the hell is going on?" Kim, already frazzled, was about to respond when he snapped, "I covered this in theory class. I don't have time for a detailed explanation right now. Just go kick some ass." No sooner had he finished than a monster burst from the dungeon, prompting Kim to sprint away, leaving Kang to manage the chaos. Kang, still puzzled, called out, "Wait. Explain what a dungeon break is." But as he turned around, he was greeted by a horde of monsters charging toward him, as if they were eager to be defeated. The sight ignited a thrill in Kang. He was barely able to contain his excitement when suddenly Yu Song's voice rang out, "Include me too." Big Brother Kang turned to see Yu Song charging into the fray, demolishing monsters with every strike. The ferocity with which Yu Song dispatched a monster, splattering blood across his face and laughing maniacally, caught Kang off guard. Yu Song reveled in the carnage, proclaiming, "Crushing them with a mace really is the best." While Kang was repulsed by Yu Song's wild demeanor, he couldn't help but feel a twinge of reassurance having someone so formidable on his side. Meanwhile, Yu Song was decimating the creatures with ease, and Kang, not to be outdone, drew his sword and leapt into the action. With a swift motion, he decapitated a monster, grinned, and then unleashed a frenzy of attacks, cutting down the creatures at an astonishing rate. Surprised, Yu Song watched as Kang yelled, "Cover your ears." Kang then executed his lion's roar technique, derisively calling the Geeka monsters chicken-headed bastards. This had an immediate effect. The monsters' stats plummeted, and their morale sank. From a distance, Kim and the other students noticed the monsters weakening, leading Kim to speculate about the debuff effect of Kang's skill. He noted that reinforcements were on their way, and that the situation was stabilizing more smoothly than anticipated. However, the battle took a turn when Kang attempted a magic explosion. Gathering swirling blue energy in his hand, he unleashed it, obliterating a monster's head but also severely injuring his own hand in the process. Kang marveled at the aftermath of his explosive skill, muttering, "What kind of messed up skill is this?" Fortunately, his self-healing capabilities quickly remedied any harm. Yu Song, still taken aback, queried, "Did you just use magic?" Kang, with a smirk, replied, "It's a skill I picked up some time ago." When Yu Song pressed whether it was from the tutorial, Kang kept it enigmatic, responding, "It's a secret." Their conversation was cut short as the ground trembled, heralding the arrival of a giant, formidable Geeka that towered over the others, a mutant boss monster. Kim, recognizing the gravity of the situation, especially since reinforcements hadn't yet arrived, knew they were in trouble. Handling minor creatures was one thing, confronting a boss of this magnitude was entirely another, particularly as it was a first for both Kang and Yu Song, at least for Yu Song. Upon seeing the massive Geeka, Yu Song momentarily froze, then, with a disturbingly eager smile, pleaded, Bro, let me have this one, please." Meanwhile, Kang, wiping the blood of a fallen Geeka from his lips, his eyes glowing a sinister green, burst into crazed laughter and roared, "I'm going to devour that behemoth." The scene then shifted. Someone approached Kim, inquiring about the day's mishap in the training dungeon. Kim confirmed the incident, detailing how an intruder had orchestrated the dungeon break. He suggested that this may be part of a broader pattern of dungeon-related terror that had emerged over the past month. The woman contemplated before asking if any trainees had distinguished themselves. Kim nodded affirmatively. Yes, there were two. They handled the dungeon boss. We flashback to Kang and Yu Song, relentlessly defeating the monstrous Geeka, both drenched in blood and laughing wildly. The woman, her interest piqued, bit her soft, silky lip and prompted. "Oh," Kim elaborated. "One of them possesses extraordinary physical abilities. His strength, speed, and agility are monstrous. However, his greatest asset is his healing power, which complements his fearless, reckless approach, making his tactics unpredictable and difficult for any adversary to counter. The other is quite the contrast to Kang." Kim continued thoughtfully. "One might call him a genius for his innate combat sense. His reflexes and tactical skills are exceptional, though his excessive brutality is a considerable drawback." Disregarding the mention of cruelty, the woman mused. "It's rare for you to speak so highly of someone. Have you offered to recruit him?" Kim replied. "It's against the rules to scout trainees while serving as an instructor." She teased him for his rigidity. Kim chuckled. "It's only natural that employees reflect their boss's traits, acknowledging her as their guild leader." After several uneventful exchanges, we finally see the woman's face. She's strikingly attractive. Identified as Sion, previously mentioned in the story, she noted the appeal of instructing but urged Kim to return to the guild soon, sensing something amiss about the incident. Kim acknowledged her concern. The narrative shifts forward, marking the 10th day. During a ceremony, Kang proudly received his Awakener certification. But as he and Yu-song approached the main exit, they were stopped in their tracks by the sight of a dazzling white limousine waiting outside. A man emerged from the limousine and beckoned. "Master, please get in." Kong, taken aback, turned to Yu-song and asked, "Were you born with a silver spoon?" Yu-song, flashing a grin, urged Kong to join him, offering to take him home. Gratefully, Kong climbed into the car, remarking, "I've never ridden in a car like this before." Just then, Kim called out to Kong from behind. Turning around, Kong once again mispronounced Kim's name as Kring. By now, Kim was accustomed to Kong's frequent slips and simply laughed it off. Feeling that Kim had come to bid him farewell, Kong observed, "You're surprisingly affectionate." Kim replied with a sigh, "It's not quite that, but sure, let's go with that." He then mentioned that the dungeon break incident from the previous day and the rewards would be shared between them. As Kim started to walk away, a flustered Kong called out, "Wait, is that all you have to say? Not even a word of thanks?" Kim paused, then affirmed, "I know you're strong, and you'll likely continue to grow stronger. We'll probably meet in a dungeon again before long. Just remember, now that you're an Awakener, you have responsibilities that come with your powers." Later, Kang, sporting a serious expression yet foolishly sticking his new certification card to his forehead, asked Johai, "Do you see my potential?" Juhai, preoccupied with watching recaps of Asura on her phone, responded sarcastically without looking up, "Yeah, it's really great and admirable." Feeling overly proud, Kang admonished her, "You should cut out the arrogance starting today, because from tomorrow, I'm taking on every dungeon in this area." He then paused, pondering, "But how the heck am I supposed to find these dungeons? Can you look them up on a map?" Juhi smirked and informed him, "There's an app for that, called Radar Impressed." Kang called her a genius. Juhi, worried about Kang's recent behavior, couldn't help but think, Kang used to be somewhat of an underachiever but never this oblivious. Has he traded brains for brawn? Meanwhile, Kang, eager to explain his newfound enthusiasm, shared that he had been researching an app detailing dungeon maps, monster data, and even ways to recruit party members. He noted that Geki's Forest was rated as an F-rank dungeon and wondered aloud if he could tackle it solo, imagining the potential wealth and the chance to impress his mother. A month later, the media buzzed with news that the reward for clearing the lowest-grade F-rank dungeon was 20 million won. Magic stones, now coveted as a novel energy source, were reportedly dropped by monsters. During this time, Kang's father casually asked his wife if she had heard from Kang recently, recalling something about a license Kang obtained last month. His wife responded that Kang had sent them 10 million won as a gift, and that they had even purchased a used car the previous week. Astonished, the father joked, "Now Kang earns more than I do," followed by a chuckle. However, Kang's mother was less amused, her worry evident as she set down a plate. She expressed her concern about the dangers of dungeon raiding, fearful of the injuries and deaths she had heard about. Trying to soothe her fears, her husband suggested that it was better for Kang to be engaged in this than to remain jobless. The television in the background advised dungeon raiders to team up for safety, to which the father remarked, "Kang isn't one to act rashly, he should be fine." "I guess, though hesitant," she agreed, reminiscing about Kang's intelligence from a young age. Unbeknownst to his parents, Kang was adventuring through dungeons alone, his days of caution seemingly behind him. They were unaware that Kang had transformed into a relentless dungeon raider, akin to a real-life action hero, with a virtual respawn point. Meanwhile, outside the dungeon, his car, affectionately named Butley, sat parked. His phone rang unanswered inside. Back at home, his mother fretted he must be asleep or something, while his father suggested, "Just call him tomorrow." She agreed but reminded him to discuss the incident at the supermarket with their son. Meanwhile, just outside Kang's parents' home, an eerie, dilapidated gate materialized. As it creaked open, a chilling aura spilled forth, followed by hordes of goblins and orcs marching by the thousands. At the rear, An enormous goblin lumbered forward, intensifying the menace. The scene shifted to Kang exiting the dungeon, triumphant from his solo conquest, exclaiming, "Nothing beats kicking some ass." He approached his car and checked his phone to find 36 missed calls from Juhai. As he pondered this, the phone rang again. Curious, Kang answered to find a distraught Juhi on the line. Between sobs, she relayed the grim news: a dungeon had opened near his parents' home, placing them in grave danger. Upon hearing this, Kang's demeanor shifted dramatically to one of grim determination. The narrative returned to Juhi, visibly distressed, urging Kang not to face the danger alone. But Kang, adopting a protective and reassuring tone for the first time, comforted her. "No need to worry. Who do you think I am?" With a confident look, he continued, "I might not always seem impressive, but remember, I cleared stage 8. A feat only 3 others in Korea have managed. Just trust me." Juhi, still anxious, waved goodbye as she implored, "Please take care and stay calm." Kang reassured her with a wave and a smile. However, as soon as he shut the car door and settled behind the wheel, his expression hardened with resolve, as if preparing to single-handedly take down the entire horde of orcs. The scene shifts again to the military halting Kang, advising him not to proceed and to turn back. Asserting his status as an ability user, Kang requests permission to pass. The soldiers warn him of the dangers of going alone, but another officer intervenes, allowing him entry. He explains that they are short on manpower and welcome any ability users, though they cannot guarantee his safety. Kang nods in understanding and expresses his gratitude for their efforts. As Kang navigates through the woods, he notes multiple dungeon breaks in the area, including an E-ranked one. He worries about his parents' safety and whether he'll reach them in time. Suddenly, a massive boar rams into his car, sending it veering off the road and crashing into a tree. In the aftermath, as Kang climbs out of his wrecked car, he curses his misfortune, vowing revenge against the boar that damaged his beloved Butley. As he draws his blade, the boar growls menacingly at him. Kang, sizing up the boar, realizes its formidable size just as a screeching horde of goblins rushes toward him. Kang muses humorously about his luck with goblins, pondering if he had wronged them in a past life. Overwhelmed and short on time, he decides against confrontation, remarking, "They say the best revenge is forgiveness," and hastily tells the boar, "I gotta go. Have a good time." As he runs toward the goblins, his strategy unfolds. The goblins' arrows, meant for him, strike the boar instead. The plan succeeds brilliantly, leading to a chaotic skirmish between the boar and the goblins, while Kang watches from a distance, a hint of satisfaction on his face. With his car wrecked, and no time to spare, Kang hastens onward. As night falls, he finds himself with a broken phone and a dying battery. Desperate, he resorts to using Google Maps to navigate through the jungle, but soon finds himself hopelessly lost. Just then, a strange noise rustled through the woods, and something began to stealthily approach Kang from behind. As he turned, locking eyes with the creature, Kang's reaction was swift: a clean slash of his sword followed by a spray of blood. He had encountered an invisible wolf known as a disrufin. As the creature collapsed, Kang expressed his surprise. "I didn't think monsters could turn invisible too," realizing a peaceful night's sleep was now out of the question. As more wolves began to encircle him, slowly emerging to reveal a large pack, Kang gripped his sword tightly and launched into action, slicing through them with lethal precision. Once the carnage ended, he spat out the blood that had splattered into his mouth, took a deep breath, and then flashed a wild, blood-stained grin, proclaiming, "I can do this all day, all night." As dawn broke, the jungle floor was littered with the bodies of hundreds of wolves, a grim testament to the night's brutal skirmish. Exhausted but undeterred, Kang found solace atop a tree, where, with the morning light halting the wolves' assault, he finally managed to catch an hour of sleep. Meanwhile, back at his parents' apartment, his mother was reading a text from Kang. He assured them he would be home soon and urged them to keep the doors locked and stay safe. Despite his reassurances, anxiety clung tightly to his mother. She called her husband, her voice tinged with fear, to which he responded, urging her to keep quiet. "Lower your voice. It might attract the monsters." As they whispered anxiously among themselves, Mom questioned, "Is it really safe for Kang to come here?" Dad, equally concerned, suggested she call Kang and ask him not to come, but she pointed out that Kang's phone was off. Dad tried to reassure her, "It's fine, nothing will happen. I know my son is strong." Yet his worry was palpable. Outside their home, hundreds of thick, muscular green monsters loomed. Could their frail little Kang truly defeat them? Tormented by fear, Kang's dad glanced out the window, only to be stunned by the sight before him. There stood Kang, drenched in goblin blood, shrouded in a dark aura, gripping an ogre's head. In a swift motion, Kang crushed the skull as if it were a balloon. With a demonic grin and his face smeared with blood, he laughed wildly, thinking, "Orcs are merely a warm-up for me." "Mom, Dad, your dear little son has arrived." Meanwhile, upon seeing Kang in this fearsome state, his father exclaimed, "What in the world? How did such a fearsome creature appear?" Kang chuckled, declaring, "I can solo an F-rank dungeon, So these orcs are a breeze as more orcs closed in. He taunted. Keep them coming, I'm not even tired. Spotting 3 orc warriors in the horde, each formidable enough to be a boss monster, he suddenly realized, this must be an E-rank dungeon. Not F-rank, he shouted. Hey mom, dad, I'm coming for you. Just stay put and keep quiet. Hearing his voice, his father muttered in disbelief. That can't be Kang's voice, can it? I just saw a monster out there, but his mother, recognizing it instantly, assured, no, that's definitely Kang. They cautiously peered out the window, scanning the unsettling scene. Kang's father, realizing it was indeed his son, felt a shock run through him. Kang, now looking more monstrous than human, was drenched in blood, nearly twice his original size, and wearing a demonic smile that sent shivers down his spine. As Kang charged at the 3 orc warriors, their war cries filled the air. He swung his blade fiercely, exchanging blows with one warrior. Suddenly, another orc lunged from the side, sword thrusting forward. Kang deftly ducked under the attack, and with a magical glow in his hand, slammed it into the orc's face, gripping its head as if it were a basketball. The explosion that followed sent the orc crumpling to the ground. Before Kang could regain his composure, another orc attacked, swinging its weapon aggressively. Kang caught the blade with his hand, the impact fracturing his wrist. Despite the pain, Kang didn't falter. He swiftly retaliated, stabbing the orc in the throat. With the orc skewered on his blade, Kang twisted and hurled it towards the 3rd orc, as if playing a grim game of bowling. The final orc warrior fell back, vulnerable, looking up at Kang. With a malevolent grin, Kang thrust his fist into the orc's mouth and whispered. Magic explosion, a blue light emanated from within, and the orc's head burst like a balloon, showering the area with blood. Kang now sat atop a mound of orc corpses, with both his and their blood mingling on the ground. He knew this was just the start. Encircling him were hundreds more orc warriors, and then, amid heavy footsteps, a towering orc general appeared, dwarfing the others. The general laughed deeply and menacingly. Unfazed, Kang retorted, "So you're the boss? Damn. You're ugly." He had hoped to conserve his magic for healing, but that plan was no longer viable. Activating his giant's power to boost his strength by 60%, Kang took a deep breath and unleashed a lion's roar. "Let's see what you're made of," he challenged, charging at the orc general. The general responded with a powerful blow to Kang's face, spraying blood from his nose and knocking him backward. Kang collided with several orc warriors who flung him back towards their leader, as if he were a mere ragdoll. This bastard's playing with me, he realized, as he was battered and then kicked violently in the chest, sending him crashing to the ground. Struggling to his feet and clutching his blade, he thought, I can't back down, not with my family right behind me. The orc general, taken aback by Kang's fierce resolve even on the brink of death, watched him closely. Kang, filled with renewed determination, charged again, only to be halted by his mother's scream from afar. Turning, he saw orcs scaling up to their window. Panic surged through him. With his face bruised and one eye barely open, he unleashed his lion's roar and bellowed, "Stay away from there, you bastards. I'll end you all if you dare." He sprinted towards his parents to protect them but was intercepted by the orcs, whom he fought off fiercely, severing their limbs and heads. As he made a dash forward, the orc general's massive hand clamped onto his head. Kang struggled helplessly as the general smashed his face into the ground, laughing maniacally with a triumphant grin. Bloodied and barely conscious, Kang whispered, "I must protect my parents," reaching out a trembling hand, tears streaming down his face. His vision blurred, his body chilled, and he lost consciousness and died. Suddenly, a flurry of attacks sliced the orc general into 4 pieces. It was none other than the heroine, who had just arrived. Her guild members followed, reporting that they had eliminated the remaining orcs. They were already prioritizing the evacuation of the injured and ensuring the safety of other residents. She sighed. The damage was extensive, but by drawing the orcs together, he mitigated what could have been far worse. Looking over at Kang, she remarked, "That's him, right? The one who stood alone against hundreds of orcs until we arrived, impressed yet somber." She added, "Sadly, he didn't survive." Just as she was about to instruct her team to handle Kang's body with the utmost care, she noticed something astonishing. The body had vanished, leaving only his clothes behind. Suddenly, Kang jolted awake, his eyes snapping open. Once a mere novice confined to an F-rank reality, he might now embark on a villainous path, especially if his parents were harmed. He found himself perched on a tree branch, exactly where he had last rested. At that moment, a system notification revealed that his Z-rank skill, Resurrection, had activated. Without a designated resurrection point, he had returned to his last sleeping spot. As a penalty, Kang's level had dropped by 1, and his stats had decreased by 50%. Realizing the implications, Kang understood he had died and failed to protect his parents. Clenching his fists under the weight of his failure, he grabbed his blade, resolved to return immediately. Dropping from the tree, he felt the impact of his weakened state and muttered, "Damn, my body feels heavy," as he ran. His mind was consumed with thoughts of his parents' safety, repeatedly pleading, "Please be alive." When Kang finally reached the area, he discovered it completely deserted. including his parents' house. After a restless night, he encountered a military unit and borrowed a phone from an officer to contact his friend Kim. The news he received was crushing. His father had lost his arms, and his mother was in a coma. Overwhelmed with anger, Kang crushed the phone in his hand. 2 months later, the news covered the Dogon Guild's pursuit of a boss in the D-rank dungeon known as Devil's Anus. They also mentioned a newly discovered C-rank dungeon. Concerned, Juhei asked Kang if he planned to enter another dungeon. His response, tinged with sadness yet resolute, was a simple yes. Juhei expressed her worry, noting, "You've already died 3 times this week." Unfazed, Kang assured her he was fine. As he walked away, Juhei tried to reassure him that his parents' fate wasn't his fault, but he shut the door behind him and left, leaving her words hanging in the air, her concern palpable. As Kang descended the stairs, Juhei stepped outside the door, her expression fraught with worry. She pondered whether having advanced further in the tutorial might have equipped her to make a difference. Meanwhile, deep within a dungeon, a scene unfolded. A giant ant named Antria met its demise at the hands of a spear-wielding man, who then leveled up, his excitement palpable as his party hailed him as the ace. Internally, he boasted about his superiority, looking forward to reaching level 35 and joining the prestigious Dogon Guild, dismissing his current companions as unworthy. Just then, Kang appeared, sprinting towards them. The man warned him about the dangerous core room ahead, but Kang, undeterred, continued his dash. Driven by curiosity, the group decided to follow him. Kang stood resolute before an army of enormous ants, his expression serious and his stance firm, sword in hand. He activated his skill, Wayne's Secret, causing his veins to bulge and electricity to crackle around him as he readied himself for a fierce battle. Wayne's Secret boosted his stats by 40%, excluding mana, but it came with a cost: gradual physical deterioration. As the ants swarmed him, Kang met their onslaught with a chilling death stare and commenced a brutal massacre, his villainous smile unfurling across his face. The level 35 man and his party arrived just in time to witness Kang's relentless assault, their jaws dropping in sheer disbelief. Kang, now standing by the dungeon core, shared that he had acquired Wayne's Secret just the day before, explaining its effective synergy with his regeneration skill. Though the skill continuously damaged his body, his self-healing ability had advanced to rank A, enabling swift regeneration even of severed limbs. "I'm turning into Deadpool day by day," he mused aloud, interrupted by the level 35 man's inquiry about his well-being. Kang responded cheerfully, "I'm so good I could dance with that." He seized the dungeon core, stored it in his inventory, and declared, "If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave. Now please step aside." With no further ado, Kang departed. The group asked if he planned to collect the magical crystals from the fallen ants, but Kang dismissed the offer, asserting he had no time to waste in leaving the bounty for them. He aspired to be the strongest. Meanwhile, the group quickly set about gathering the mana crystals, each member calculating the potential windfall. The spear-wielding man took one last look at Kang before they departed. Later, curiosity arose among them about Kang's identity. The cocky spearman dismissed the question. "Why does it matter? We're making a fortune here, and that's what's important." He advised his teammate not to dwell on it, emphasizing the diversity of people they encounter in dungeons and the substantial earnings of the day. All thanks to Kang. One member speculated, could he be the one? The guy rumored to solo dungeons? The spearman scoffed. No way. That rumor's about someone clearing E-rank dungeons. Only just as he was about to dismiss the thought entirely, the ground trembled. Status windows popped up before them, announcing that the core had been removed and the portal to the outside was now open. Back in the boss room, amidst hundreds of slain general ants, Kang sat atop the queen ant's corpse like a demon king, a sigh escaping him. He had acquired a new skill book named Antria's Outer Shell, which when activated would harden his skin. However, Kang noted that combining Wayne's Secret with his regeneration skill was already taxing his mana to its limits. Using this new skill would deplete him entirely. He mused aloud, reinforcing a lesson to himself: using many skills doesn't make you skilled. Mastering a skill through repetition, using it 10,000 times, that's what makes it truly useful. Despite his new prowess, Kang harbored deep regrets about not being strong enough to save his parents. With a resolute vow, he declared, "I will become the strongest man alive on Earth."